Welcome back to Dirt and All. It's episode 15 and we're joined here by the guys from Expressway Spares, Patrick Cassegrain and Jeff Fowler. How are we?
Good, thank you.
Good, thanks,
good
Ryan.
To be
Morning, guys. How are we?
Yeah, well, thank you.
Good.
So a lot of our listeners would know this, but Expressway Spares is just half an hour down the road from DGI here in Kempsey, and we have a long-standing relationship between the two businesses, as we've explained in previous episodes with David.
It's been a very long experience there, learning and
Yeah.
close relationship
Been a lot
with
of
you
years,
guys.
actually.
Yep. So David Griffin, founder of DGI Trading, come up through the ranks of Expressway Spares, and that's why we're all here today. So it's great to have you guys here with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you very much, Ryan and Ben.
Yeah, love to hear your story today. It's looking forward to it.
So Patrick, you just had your 60th anniversary event, which I was honoured to be a part of, and Jeff, you've just surpassed 50 years of service at Expressway Spares. Big achievement.
Yep, 7th of this month.
Yeah, is it? Wow.
So, been there and made it.
One of the things
Yeah.
that I didn't know a lot about the business and the history of the business, and you and I got to sit down and have a bit of a chat in the boardroom there, and you explained to me that the Cassegrain family, yours is an immigrant story. Can you give our...
That's correct, Ryan. My parents immigrated out from France in 1950. Well, Dad came out in 50, and Mum and the three other children, my other siblings, came out in 1951. Mum and Dad couldn't speak a word of English.
Wow.
So it was a big step for them. We weren't two bob Poms, we were 5 francs French. In other words, Mum and Dad had to pay their own way over. As a matter of fact, my father had to borrow money off his father-in-law, my grandfather, to pay for the trip.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you know why he picked the Hastings?
Well, we picked Australia. Oh, well, for a start, we picked Australia because it was a warm country and there's opportunities here,
Yep.
Ben. The Hastings Valley, after a couple of years, was chosen because my father had an opportunity of becoming a mechanic in a sawmill near Warhope.
Yep.
And then we went to Yarras in about 1952, I think it was.
Up the mountain.
Up the mountain, at the foot of the mountains, yeah. And Dad got a job at a place called Yarras Veneer and Plywood as a mechanic, and eventually became a contractor for that mill. And as a matter of interest, that mill was supplying the veneer for the opera house.
Yeah,
for
right.
the lining inside the opera house.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And is that what he'd done back in France as well?
No, Dad was, during the war, he was working for the Red Cross. He was too young to join the army, but he was just a self-made mechanic. He used to grow vegetables.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah.
Grapes?
No, no, not grapes those days.
So how long were the years in the bush in Yarras out west of Port Macquarie? How long did those years go on?
Well, we started till about 1963, 64. The good thing about Yarras was we didn't have to pay rent. Mum and Dad had a mill house.
Oh, yeah.
We had no power, had water, no toilets. The toilets were outside, and my mother, who was brought up in France at Versailles, had running water, toilets, and for her it was a big shock.
Yeah, right.
Black snakes in the backyard.
Everywhere. Yeah, I imagine.
So she suffered a lot, poor old mum. But they saved money and worked hard, and yeah.
Yep. How old were you at this stage?
Well, I was I was about 9 months old when we came to Australia,
Yep.
Ben, and Ryan, sorry. And when we, when I was living at Yarras was till I was about 13 or 14.
Yep.
I still remember it, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your fondest memories of those days?
The fondest memories was probably riding on the truck with my father. Dad used to have an old 4x4 AC, four-wheel drive.
Yep.
And he used to go logging when it was raining or not. He'd always get the logs out. The others would have NR Max, and they were the big trucks of the day.
Yeah.
But they'd always get bogged when it rained. So Dad was up and down the highway. No cab. I used to sit on the bonnet. Catherine and I used to sit on the bonnet, my sister.
Oxley Highway.
Yeah, well,
down
the
road.
rev count. You could see the tail shaft turning around. You count the revs. Amazing. And the biggest thrill was when Dad bought a new truck. Eventually bought a new truck in the early 60s, or late 50s, sorry, an AC Mammoth Major. And he had a cab on it. We thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, okay.
And ever since then, Dad could have a weekend off occasionally.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
You get more logs out, I suppose, with it.
Well, he had less time repairing,
Yep.
Ben, yeah.
New truck.
New truck, yeah.
So how did the transition go from the logging to the beginning of Expressway Spares
Oh,
or
good-
Froggies, as
Yeah.
we know?
Their dad was always called Froggy.
Froggy.
Yeah.
That's our
Frenchman.
French
Yep.
origin. Yeah. Ryan, what Dad was concerned about in those days, when you broke down, you literally had to wait weeks on end for parts.
Yep.
The parts came either from Sydney, Brisbane, Newcastle, and it took a long time. And Dad says, crazy, the service should be where the machines are working.
Yep.
It made sense. Hence, he started off Expressway Spares in 1964 on the highway for the logging industry in those days.
Yep.
And then the logging industry, there was also the mining, beach mining up and down the coast. They used to,
RZ Mines,
yeah, zinc and,
What
not
did they
zinc, sorry,
use
rutile.
back then? What year?
They had
scrapers and
dozers on the beach,
Yeah.
like pulling the skids and that around.
Ah.
Yeah.
Is that when that all that glow green stuff in the ocean at night? That's what they're mining?
Phosphorus?
Phosphorus they're mining?
no,
rutile-
so it was
rutile
rutile,
is
the
rutile.
black,
Yeah.
the black mineral in the sand dunes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Yeah, they used to stuff up the sand dunes.
Wouldn't get away with that now.
Anyway,
No,
when
it
that
wouldn't.
finished, the logging industry, finished as well. So that's when we went into the earth moving machinery,
And that
heavy
was
machinery.
like a lot of farming back work there.
Yes,
Wasn't it? Big
as well.
scrapers.
Ben, there we used to, probably a majority of our customers were farmers in those days, Geoff, weren't they?
Yeah, they would have been.
Because in those days, the farmers were using direct drive stick shift D8s and D7s
Okay.
Yep.
for ploughing. And
What was the first bit of Caterpillar machine wrecked?
the first machine my father bought, or Expressways did, was a D73T, as far as I can remember.
Is it? Yeah, right. D73T.
Yeah, that tells you my age, doesn't it?
So it's 64, reverse engineering the maths, you would have been 14 by this
Correct.
point.
Yeah.
And when did you enter the scene, Geoff?
I started at Expressways in 1975.
Yep.
And I was just shy of 16.
Well,
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to work. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I come up and I did 12 months fencing with Dad. I left school in Newcastle.
Oh, yeah.
Come and did 12 months fencing up at Lake Innes, the old Lake Innes before the highway split.
Yep.
And then got a start at Expressways in April 75.
75.
Whereabouts in Newcastle did you grow up?
Well, yeah, I actually went to 26 different schools, so
Really?
we moved a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dad was a butcher by trade, but he hated it. He loved the land and farming, and
Outside work.
so,
So-
we just travelled around a bit.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump ahead too far. I didn't know if you'd ended the scene by this point, so I don't want to skip out on any of the formidable years of Expressways, Patrick. What were the years like when you left school and before you started at Expressway Spares?
Well, at the beginning of Expressway Spares, I was a boarder up in Lismore,
Yep.
a college called Woodlawn
Oh, you
College.
went
Oh,
to
yeah,
Woodlawn.
yeah.
Okay.
Run by the Morris fathers, and I was there for 6 years. So we used to only come home probably 3 or 4 times a year. And when I was at home at the beginning of Expressways, I was either sorting out nuts and bolts or
Yeah.
the wire brush, scraping off all the rust on various components. And then after that, I went to the BHP in Newcastle and tried mechanical engineering. And I disliked that. I can't say the word hate. I'm not supposed to say the word hate. I didn't like it.
Yep.
So I went to Fiat Tractors in Sydney as a junior salesman. And I enjoyed that. That was a good experience because my father just didn't want us to come straight from school into the business. He wanted us to get outside experience.
Learn something.
Yeah, and learn something and learn
Yeah.
what it's like to work for a boss, not for family.
Yeah.
And which was a good training. So, yeah.
How long were you in Sydney for working at Fiat?
From memory, probably 2 years.
Yep.
And then I came back and I became an operator for one of my father's. Dad had a company called CTK as well with 2 other gentlemen. They were Yugoslav, migrants like ourselves. That CTK was Cassegrain, Terp, Cunner Civic, and they formed a company, and that company had earth moving and logging machines. Dad had Expressway Spares on his own, Mum and
Yes.
Dad, and the logging and the other machinery was with the company called CTK. And I was driving a scraper. I started off driving a scraper with them.
Yeah, wow.
We were working on the Oxley Highway between Long Flat and Seaview. We did for the DMR in those days.
Yeah. Few steep cuts there.
Yeah, and I was driving an old 619B stick shift, or manual as they call these days, a stick shift scraper. Cable blades, no cabin.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an experience.
Yeah,
it
it
was.
would have been.
It
Making
was.
that highway, yeah.
So when did you transition directly into the business itself?
Well, then I went to Europe for 4 years, worked selling machinery over there in France. And then I came back in 78, I think. Yeah, 78. And I joined Expressway Spares then again. I was in a Storm and a Packer and in the part, got into the parts, and eventually into sales and purchasing with Geoff and David Griffin at the time.
Yeah.
And we had Max Griffiths as our general manager at the time.
Correct.
And then when Dad passed away in 93, I took over as managing director.
MD, yeah.
93, sorry, yeah. Yeah, I said 93.
What was it like when you first landed back here in Australia? And Geoff, I'm going to keep bringing it up. You looked pretty sharp back in the day. You had the knitted turtleneck-looking jumper I saw in the museum there, and I saw some pictures of David as well, looking very sprightly. What was it like landing back in Australia? And did you guys have a good sales team?
I learned one thing from Geoff is that we used to work Saturdays those days.
Yep.
And Geoff, he'd turn up Saturday morning at 5 or 6 o'clock to work. He just came straight from the nightclub.
Maybe.
Back in the day.
I'm sure it was.
No, normally from the track.
But in those days we did. We worked till 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock it was, Saturday.
On Saturday as well.
Yeah, every Saturday.
And then the odd Sundays as well.
Yeah.
And with the customer base you guys had around here, like you'd probably be quite busy on a Saturday, guys coming in and sorting out their equipment.
Well, a lot of the contractors, that's the only time they had to do some maintenance.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
So they'd come down to Expressways with their tucker box and their rollies,
yeah, yeah.
mate, sitting there watching and having a yarn.
What was it like? What was Geoff like? What was David like? What was it? Was it a good team of guys to work
Oh,
with?
they were great, fantastic.
Yeah.
And those days we had as I said, a general manager, Max Griffiths. We had a fantastic workshop staff, Jerry Nagel, Chris Vanderlei. They were a good team of blokes. Yeah, you remember those.
And one person I better not forget is Catherine. When did she come in?
Oh, well, Catherine's, she's my rock. She's been with us now for, she joined us. Oh, she's done at least 30 years, Catherine.
Yeah.
Yeah. She joined us as our receptionist and debt collector. And the good thing about Catherine, she's like a dog with a bone. She doesn't let go. And fantastic. Yeah, she was great to have on board.
Yeah, she would have been. Had the ability to just pick up every voice on that phone at the
People
front.
just love chatting to her.
Well, 15 plus years ago, when I tried my hand at sales, I used to deal with Geoff, and I'd ring Expressway Spares, and Catherine would answer the phone. When I reconnected with Catherine recently, I recognised her voice in the hallway before I recognised her face. It had been that long.
Well, as you know in business, the most important person is the front person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how you answer that phone is very important. And Catherine just had the gift of making people feel welcome. And she'd be a bit cheeky too.
Oh, yeah.
They love that.
A bit of banter there.
She was good.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting hearing about those early days pre my understanding of Expressways. I think growing up in this region myself, and I said this recently with you guys, there's not many people from whether it be the Macleay or the Hastings that wouldn't know who Expressways are and have driven past that shed on the highway countless times. There's probably a few stories that span back to David Griffin days as well, even with the agricultural component, is AgQuip. And I know you guys, that was a real big thing. And I think you guys are doing it.
You can see the smile on his face.
Yeah. Tell us about it. I've never been out there.
That business would have been a big part.
Oh, it was,
wasn't it?
Ben.
That agricultural section.
It's nothing. It's now nothing like it was when we used to go out.
Yeah.
Like it was purely and only agricultural. You didn't have any of the like the ancillary sort of shops and things like that.
A few clothes there. There wasn't that.
None of that. Like it was all and everything you could they had machines there, testing areas. They had ploughs that people could go and trial. And it was really good.
So you guys were exhibiting out there? Did you?
Yeah.
We were just going for a junket trip?
No. We had a permanent building on site.
Oh, really? Yep.
A little shed that we put up on our block, and I went. What were 20 years?
Right. We worked hard and we played hard as well.
Just a
We're
bit.
only young then, but we knew Gunnedah very well.
Yeah.
We used to have to bill it because there's no accommodation, so we'd have to stay in private homes.
Oh,
And some of those experiences, well, honestly, you had to have you had to like booze to.
There would have been a few long days there.
Oh
I
yes, the
understand.
long nights on the riverbank.
So to talk us through a typical AgQuip trip from start to back? What was
like
the sort of
organisation of getting a display or?
Well, I could hold that in there because I remember when Geoff used to drive his truck out, it was only a 4-cylinder little 2-ton truck. It took him about 10 hours to get out there. It was so slow. It was full of nuts and bolts and tools and bits of equipment was showing off. And, I can remember that.
No, the planning was done, like takes months out, especially back then, like moving D8s
logistics.
and like we had TD15 out there one year, an ex-army TD15, which we sold.
They would have been a big part of your business too.
Yeah.
Old Enters.
Yeah, they were. Option sale. Army. Ex-army.
The army was a very a big part of the business at one stage because we'd go around all the army auctions, like whether it down to Bandiana or wherever it might be,
and pick up those.
And parts too as well.
Because they were popular. Yeah.
So how long were you out there for it each time? A week? Is it how long did the show go for?
The show went for 3 days.
Yeah.
But we would be out there on the weekend prior.
Yep.
Setting up. Yeah.
And they'd like the shed made it a lot better.
Yep.
Because like we knew what we had out there and all
the size, everything.
The gear we needed and that. So you were only taking the actual items you wanted to display or set up out in the yard area.
Would you sell much gear back then in the stand?
No, not directly.
No.
Someone wouldn't just take that TD. And...
But really, like as far as I can remember, every machine we took out, we sold out there.
There you go. Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
Whether it be because we had some D8 direct drives and that at that time that came out of Newcal that we did up. We went through and done up.
So the trip home was even slower after a big week out there in your truck.
No. It was all right.
It was all right.
So you mentioned New Caledonia, and I know from bits of the story that I know, this is probably around the time that you guys started to travel overseas quite a bit and be working on more earth-moving equipment.
Oh, we travelled before that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
When did that sort of start in your role, the overseas trips?
Well, I remember we had a gentleman called Ian Mundell, unfortunately has passed away now, but Ian had some contacts in London who had contacts in Nigeria and Central Africa. And I went over there with Ian and we started getting some surplus parts, new parts that were no longer in use or redundant, if you like.
Is this the World Bank surplus components? Anything to do with
No,
that?
Ben, I'll shoot you if you knew what I was coming. No, it was from a contractor. What happened was in Nigeria, the Germans especially had big contractors go to Nigeria, do the job, and then they'd have to bring everything with them for supporting for those projects, as in parts,
70s,
equipment.
1970s sort of.
Yeah,
Vintage, 80s?
80s, 90s.
Yeah, 80s,
And then
early
once the
90s.
jobs were finished, they'd just walk away. So we'd go there and buy it. Yeah.
Yep. Wow.
Oh, it was a big thing. It was fantastic. And then I went over there with to Nigeria with David Griffin.
Yes.
I went with Dave Montgomery.
Yep.
And also with Geoff Fowler.
Oh, you've been there too.
Yeah.
Oh, been there.
And myself, I went over there.
But one thing I've heard, you're the only person that's gone back there.
Yeah.
All of the other guys have said, no way.
I know. But just on
You
that
don't want to discuss why.
And Ryan, I was going to say that when Geoff came over, we flew to London first and had to go to Lagos. And on the way home, when we got in London, I said to Geoff, look, I'm just ducking over to France to see some of my relations for a couple of days. And you've never been in London before. Why don't you, you've worked hard. We've had a good week or 2 weeks, whatever it was. And go and visit London. Okay. So when I got back to Heathrow or Gatwick, wherever it was, I rang Geoff up and here he was at the office. He didn't.
He
said,
went home.
Didn't interest you?
He just went straight home. He went from one airport to the other and straight home. Talk about dedication.
What was international travel like back then? Sitting up having a cigarette on the plane? Was it like that era of?
Yeah, it was. You could smoke on planes early
on.
Yeah.
You could certainly drink.
But you had a little sign that said no smoking and smoking. So
because it makes all the difference when you're in a self-contained unit flying through the sky for hours.
But they didn't have flat beds then either. Your business class, if you were going business, were only 45-degree angle seats.
Just that little.
Yeah. But anyway,
was there a few moments of those trips that you could tell us about? A few moments of those trips? Anyone in particular?
Got to be careful here.
Well, I don't know if one of the stories David told us was with you when
Yes.
in Nigeria.
Oh,
maybe?
yeah, that was scary. We got held up.
Can you give us your version of the events?
Yeah, we had driver, and we had to go through this checkpoint, and all they wanted was cash.
Yeah.
And they could see that there was 2 Europeans sitting in the back, white fellas. So they held us up, and the bloke just took off. And then next minute you could see the guy literally had the rifle pointing to the car, and Griffin and I just shut ourselves, put our heads down and swore at the driver or whatever we did. I don't know. But anyway, we missed it. But all it was for
cash.
For cash, yeah.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Is that the only time you've ever had a rifle held at you?
Well,
overseas?
as bad as that it was, yeah. Look, Nigeria, unfortunately, is a sad country. It's terrible. It's corrupt. There's so much poverty there. And it's such a rich country. It's so sad.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of resources in Nigeria.
Yep.
But unfortunately, it's just corruption and.
It hasn't got any better then for the last 40 years.
Well, I don't think so,
Yeah.
Ben.
What's your most memorable trip over the years, work-related trip?
Oh, look, Ryan, I've had several great trips with both Geoff and David over to America and Canada. Dave Montgomery and I enjoyed Canada. I could tell you some stories about that, but I better not on air.
And just for everyone listening, Dave Montgomery's sitting here in the lounge at the back of the room, watching us closely too. So.
And he's worried what I'm going to say, but I won't dob him in.
Not yet.
He's my wife. No, I won't. But look, I enjoyed travelling with the staff. I really did.
Yeah.
It was great. I don't mind travelling on my own, but travelling with the staff, especially Geoff Davids and the Ians and the David Griffins, they knew what they were talking about more so than I did, which was, that's good. They had the product knowledge,
Yep.
which I didn't have, but it was a good support and I really enjoyed it, yeah.
Yeah. It would have been interesting those
It
days.
was.
Yeah. Back with faxes, was it?
But, sorry?
Faxing back pictures and that type of thing.
Or telex.
Telex.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that work?
Well, you did
Worked.
the deal, and that's why it was. Well, it was good for having me there too, because I could, it was from the financial point of view, we could say, look,
You
let's
were
go
on the
ahead and do
check,
it.
so yeah.
And that was a big winner to be able to make a decision there and then.
Yep. We've talked memorable trips. What about memorable deals? You blokes have probably done a fair few deals in your time.
My greatest memory of a deal would be the Nigerian packages we got over the years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I think it was because of it was so big, and it was the first one that we'd ventured into that
Yeah.
area, and just the logistics and
It's amazing.
A lot
eh?
of risk versus reward as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
involved
and
in
The
the
time
deal.
frame, like
And we got a lot of new redundant parts
Yep.
and components. Yeah. So that would have been, from my point of view, our most favourable
Yep.
deal that we did overseas, yeah.
yeah, it gave everyone else an alternative, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And build up our stock.
Didn't it?
That's what you need, stock,
Yeah.
yeah.
Genuine.
well, I think there was more stock in that than what we had in the shoals at the time.
Unreal.
What year did you start travelling overseas in your role?
2004.
Yep.
First trip. Yeah.
Yep.
So it was after the Olympics. So I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was everything sort of changed before then.
Between all of you guys sitting here at the table, there wouldn't be many countries that you guys haven't probably stepped foot on
Probably
in
not.
search of a deal somewhere in the world.
No.
No.
Wouldn't be.
Dave Montgomery's over there in the background. He's been all corners of the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we still do.
Yeah.
Yep. Where do you think you've probably spent the most time? I don't know. We're not giving away any trade secrets here. Where do you source most parts?
Well, the world's round. It's called a globe.
Yeah. So talking about the evolution of the business to date, what does the future look like for the business and in a broader sense, the industry, the market as a whole?
Ryan, look, my biggest concern, unfortunately, is the uncertainty we have today in today's market, basically run from politicians. I think, unfortunately, politicians these days are all about themselves and they're not too concerned about the future of the country. In the old days, you could plan 10 years in advance, invest in your money. You knew what you're doing, where you're going. Today, it's scary because things change so much, and there's so much red tape, green tape. It's very, very difficult to look in advance and say, well, this is what we're going to do in 10. This will all be in 10 years' time, because the politicians, one day they can close a mine, next day they can open one. You don't know.
Yep.
There's too much uncertainty out there. We need leaders that get out there, leaders that will give us certainty for the future, and that's our biggest concern.
That would make that decision of putting that gantry crane in a no-brainer, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. There's a good example, Ben. Absolutely.
You'd look for that.
In those days, you had certainty, but today there's so much uncertainty. We've got to wake up.
Hard to take that long-term view of
It
where
is
to
very
take
hard,
business.
very difficult. And that's a shame for our children, our grandchildren.
Yep.
We've got to reinvest in the future, and we need to encourage people to invest in Australia.
Yep.
We don't manufacture anything, or very little anymore.
Yep.
So, although there's a manufacturing might be Warhope, but we can get parts made, which is fantastic. They're a little family business, but we need that encouragement from our leaders.
Yep.
To give us that certainty.
Yeah.
And we haven't got that today.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yep. And what about the future of the business?
Look, I'm very fortunate that my sister Catherine and I have obtained and continued owning the company. I have my now that I've retired, as you know, I've got James Dunn replacing me as managing director. My son's also a co-director involved in the business. And I've got blokes, we've got staff like Geoff, David, and Grant Munro, Teresa, all these people that the backbone of the company. I can't name them all because I'd have to name the 380 odd.
A whole lot.
But they're all important, and it's keeping the family spirit.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And we have good outside directors, which is important to, I think, any family company. I would advise to have outside directors to keep us on the straight and narrow, make sure that we're doing our obligations are all on the right track.
Yeah, obligation. Yeah,
absolutely, to the staff and also to the government, whatever. So I think we've got a good future, providing, as I said, that we can get more certainty within the industry as a whole.
Yep.
Definitely.
And that starts from the top in Canberra.
Yep.
In my honest opinion.
Yeah.
You've and you got grandchildren coming up through the ranks too now.
Well, they're a fair way back, but I'm not sure how that's going to go. But maybe some of the grandkids will come through the system. James has got a son and a daughter. Stefan's got 2 daughters. I doubt if they may be interested or they may get married. I don't know that. But in the meantime, we've got a few years to go with having James and Stefan
and you guys on the
board. Yeah, I'm still staying on the board.
I'm just interested to see if when they come around and see Pop, if you start to just politically steer them in the right direction.
Politically, I certainly do. I certainly do that. That's my job.
Definitely.
What are some of the other issues you see with running a business these days?
Look, honestly, Ryan, one of the big issues that I can't comprehend is payroll tax. I know it's a state government tax, but it's a tax that the more you employ, the more you've got to give to the government. Yeah. Which to me
should be the opposite.
It should be the opposite, because in business we can handle and do better with money than the government. We know that. Now, if we didn't have to pay payroll tax, I would say that the government should say, well, look, business, no payroll tax. However, you've got to reinvest in R&D, research and development.
Yeah.
That money's got to be invested in the business, not to go and buy a yacht or fast whatever. That money must be reinvested in the business, and out of that will create more wealth for the country, because the more money you make, the more tax you pay.
Definitely, yeah.
So it makes sense. So payroll tax it's an immoral tax as far as I'm concerned. And we could put on 20, 30 people easy.
With that payroll tax,
Or to invest that into research and development and to manufacturing.
Yep.
And that makes sense. So, look, but there again, the politicians just can't understand that.
Yeah.
They waste it.
Navigating tax is definitely one of the trickiest parts I've found since going into business for myself, and just the sheer amount and different types of tax that you are.
There should be a flat tax.
Be done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, there's a lot of like younger entrepreneurial guys that I follow on social media now, and they're moving to Cyprus, and they're leaving, and they're setting up base elsewhere. They're abandoning the whole way of life just simply for the tax advantage, and maybe they plan to re-enter one day, but they're driving Australians away.
And also, our HR laws, industrial relations have gone out of whack.
Yeah.
They've gone too far.
In what way?
There's so much time and energy spent into to unnecessary, I believe. OH&S is very important. There's no two ways about it. Everyone wants to stay safe and keep their staff safe, but there is a limit. And I think now you can't. There's things that have just gone out of whack, as you can't do things like we used to be able to do and still be safe.
Yep.
I just think that's part of the red tape in running a business. To start a business today, honestly, would be very, very very I feel
the
sorry
efficiency.
for you.
Like you can't get
Thanks.
Yeah, and the more employees you,
can't get
have,
efficiency.
the more difficult it seems to get for you guys, you know?
And we take responsibility away from the individual. We're not making the individual think enough for themselves.
Yep.
Yep.
And then when they get home, no one's telling them what to do. Then that's when they get injured.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
We all work in a very dangerous industry where on live sites there's a lot going on, but common sense has prevailed in the most part for such a long time. And, you know, I see it. I travel around to different dealers and operators, and there are varying degrees of safety, but some of the things you see are just ridiculous.
Look, safety is, everyone wants to be safe, and it's obviously our utmost priority to keep our staff safe.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you need them also to think for themselves.
Yep.
And be aware of, more so than by dictating to them.
Yep.
You've got to get them involved in the decision making and the processes.
Yep, that'd make them feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's where you've got to negotiate, and not negotiate, sorry, you've got to talk and discuss with your staff, and you can do that without having to go through all these unnecessary bureaucracy.
Yep.
Job justification for these guys.
Absolutely. And that comes at a cost.
Well, it is. It's self-generating.
Yep.
And we're trying to
whole
compete,
industry.
or you can't.
This episode is powered by DGI Trading, the leading supplier of production-critical mining components. Visit dgitrading.com.
One thing that we talk about, and we've had other guys from the industry on here, it's the word's probably incestuous, the industry where everyone's a competitor, everyone's a customer, a lot of great relationships. Who are some of your memorable customers / competitors over the years?
Look, Ryan, we have everyone's a customer. Even our well, I hate to say the word competitors, our colleagues, I call them colleagues.
Yeah.
They're a big customer as well. So
Yep.
We have a great relationship with them. Even the OEMs are a customer of ours.
Yep.
We're able to stock old parts and redundant stock that they don't they can't carry because they need to obviously concentrate on the newer model machines. So, everyone who buys a nut and bolt's a customer.
Yep.
As my father used to say, someone who comes in and buy a washer one day might end up buying a bulldozer.
That's right, yeah.
So everyone's a customer.
Look after him.
Yeah.
We have a good relationship with the OEM. We work very closely with them and with our other dealers like the DGIs and the Don Clarks and you've got Williams, R&D Williams in Brisbane. You've got
Graham
Smiths. So we all get on well together.
Yeah.
We respect each other. And I think, although we do compete, but we have a lot of... It's a small industry, believe it or not. Outside of the OEMs, we're a small group of people that really... it's a big advantage for us.
It's a niche sort of market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I think, like, talking about travel before, I've sort of been in and loosely related to the industry for 15 plus years now. And, you know, there's people that you just bump into you haven't seen for a long time, e.g. at Mine Expo, and I walked into Caesar's Palace one night and I bumped into Dave Montgomery. I hadn't seen you for 10 years. And it's, you know, you never know where you're going to bump into somebody from the industry.
Yeah.
And whether it's travel for sourcing products, there's so many great events in the industry as well. And that's...
But you even find people move between jobs, but still within that industry.
Same industry, yeah.
So you still catch up with them somewhere.
They
pop up.
What about people in particular? Have you got any favourite customers, any favourite personalities from the industry that may not be around anymore? Or?
Look, I'd say I had the privilege of working with Dave Ritchie.
Oh, wow.
I met him. He's a lovely man. He's the one that him and his brother at the time started off Ritchie Brothers.
Yep.
They were Canadians. I had the privilege of even being invited on his, he had a magnificent vessel, a big ship. Well, I call it a ship, they call it a sailing boat. But
I'll tell you about that story. We've seen that at Southwest Rocks.
He was on the way down and he called in at home And he was in Sydney and invited myself, my sister Catherine, her husband, for a weekend on that lovely ship called the
Posey, is it?
I'll remember it later.
Do you know why? Because we drove around it in Troll Bay and parked there, and we didn't know what it was. Turned around, and we went back in the river mouth and got back up on the headland later on the day, and they're there with the massive big cameras, and they're going, "Oh, this is Greg Norman's hired this yacht because he was going down to watch the tennis play." And then you said a week later and said,
"No, it wasn't him.
That was Dave Ritchie. Couldn't get into Port Macquarie Bar, had to stop at Troll Bay."
And then he hired a bus to come down and had lunch at the winery.
Yeah.
Lovely man. So from that point of view, Ryan, I'd say that he would be one that I certainly remember.
Yep.
He had a memory. He'd always have a cocktail before the auction. And as you walked in, he'd know everyone's name.
Yeah,
He'd stand there and greet everyone.
Okay, yeah.
Lovely man.
What, is it a big cruising yacht? Like a
it was massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
He had probably, I don't know, 15 crew at least 10, 15
Yeah,
crew.
they had like jet skis out the back and hooning around like all day.
That was a good experience.
He'd just fly and then they'd meet him in the port.
Do you guys still have a lot to do with Ritchie's now?
Not as much.
No. It's faded off.
Faded off a bit, yeah.
In June, you've got the first in-person auction in a long time in Geelong.
Yeah, down in Melbourne this year. So that'll be
interesting.
Yeah.
COVID definitely changed the way we do auctions.
We had Tim Keys on here recently, and we went through that, and it just changed the landscape of so many parts of the industry, and auctions being one that was really changed.
Definitely.
Oh, it's changed over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And the internet's just made it so small.
Even travel.
Yeah.
Like you don't travel like you used to travel.
Yeah. Well, we're fortunate enough, Ryan, is that with the experience that Geoff, David and others have, they don't need to physically go and look anymore because of their experience, something similar to Ben.
Yeah.
And the
do it over
photos
the
you
phone.
get now.
I feel sorry for the new
history.
I feel sorry for the young fellas coming through because they don't have that experience.
Yeah.
So when you guys retire, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm a bit concerned about that.
Hands-on,
Yeah. Knowing the product as good as you do.
I think what's going to come through is this electrification of the product, like the electric drive stuff, the technology. I think that's going to really come into play in the next 10 years as well.
Absolutely.
Definitely in some form, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's going to really change, I think.
Well, you're travelling less now, I'm assuming, than you did before.
The emails and internet's a lot easier these days,
And then the gamble becomes more when you're buying a package of equipment, you can't get under and see
you don't
where
really
those leaks
know.
are.
And you're not allowed under the 12 o'clock shadow these days when you go and look at a thing.
Oh, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
So you can't climb on it and check it. You just got to walk around. It's not much different than a phone and video can do these days.
No. Well, especially you see now with the photo
360 view,
all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Unreal.
It'll be virtual reality next. You just pop your glasses on and go for a full drive
wander
the
around.
machine.
But unfortunately, it takes the fun out of it too because travelling was good fun. You meet people.
You meet
Whereas with the modern
relationships.
technology, you don't get to meet the person.
Yep.
And 90% of business is relationships.
Yeah.
And you miss that. You miss the interaction.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think that's the trouble with modern technology. It's got its advantages. It also has its disadvantages. And that interaction, meeting people, getting to know their character, I think that means a lot.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Now, otherwise, if you just become a electronic, what do you call it, intellectual property.
Just another one, isn't it?
Can't
And pick it up on AI, whatever you want.
I'm glad I'm retiring now.
But I do think, like, from my experience in this industry, like, whether it be yourself, Geoff, like I talked to you countless times on the phone before I ever met you, and you feel like you know the person, and whether it would be Buddy from West Track, and there's a lot of people that I still know today in a different way, shape or form, that it was a long time before I ever physically met them. And when you do, you feel like you know them already, where I don't seem to get that these days in other areas of my business or other people I deal with as much. Maybe it's...
I think a lot of it comes back to experience too.
Yeah.
Like, if you're confident with somebody you're dealing with and they know and they help you, well, then you sort of become more comfortable. Whereas now a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
No, it's just that SMSs and emails are taking that voice interaction away.
Well, even your sales guys now, like, there's not the amount of knowledge required.
Yeah,
because everything's on the internet.
And you could ask Catherine, how many less phone calls would you have through the front desk?
Talking about that, man, it was with Catherine. People used to call there just to see her, just to meet her.
Yeah.
They wanted us physically
They dropped
see
in,
her.
I remember that, yes.
And they were so surprised. In a nice way, they loved it. But they literally would call there just to say hello to Catherine.
Yeah.
Because that relationship that she created over the phone.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Which is great, yeah.
We're all in the business of equipment and machines, and we've asked a lot of people this as well. What are your favourite machines, guys? What is it? The D8 down in the museum?
From my point of view, sorry, Geoff. From my point of view, would be the old 619 scrapers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to call them. Well, they're stick shifts, but direct drives.
Wow.
And honestly, the D8H the D8s of the world, the early D8Hs put us on the map.
Yeah.
D7Es, they're the ones that really started us
They're
off.
Mulgos, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they weren't old in those days.
No, you probably get the late ones and ex-military.
Yeah, that's true.
What about you, mate? You've been pretty quiet.
Yeah, no, it's pretty well much the same. Like we've grown up with D8s. Virtually, probably one of our strongest models. For a lot of years.
Yep.
Along with the D7s. So.
Yep.
Get any of them out of New Guinea?
Don't tell too much, Geoff.
No. A lot of them come from Newcastle.
But the good thing in those days, you used to get up and drive them as well.
Yeah.
You'd get a new machine in to dismantle for parts, and before you did it, you'd hop on it, go up the back and have a play with it.
Yeah.
Now, the salesman today wouldn't even go, our H&S wouldn't allow them to go near one.
Yeah.
But in those, we'd hop on, drive it, so we knew what the customer was talking about, you know?
Yeah.
And you'd walk around, have a look where stuff goes, where it fits, how it works, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's got a hell of a lot bigger these days, but it hasn't
Oh,
got the
of
size
course.
of it. Yeah.
So
Step
but
into
it hasn't changed, really.
that. When did you guys step into mining?
Would have been early 90s.
90s?
Yeah, late 80s, 90s, yeah.
I think the first mining machine would have been a D9G.
Oh, yeah, D9G.
Yeah, I think we would have got.
A 992.
And a 992.
992's from
Old 992A.
Wollongong.
Yeah.
Oh, they had a steelworks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, probably was the expansion of your facility again to take a whole heap more.
Absolutely.
It's like we were lucky in the sense of that room wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
For us, and then with the installation of the overhead travelling crane, 100-ton crane, it really made handling that.
When
stuff
did you put that
simple.
in? Was that
in the early 90s?
Was it? Yeah.
So that's where my father he was a great visionary person. Number one, as Geoff said, we had the room. Everyone said, "Oh, Froggy, you should be building in Warhope." No, he's on the highway.
Yeah.
So instead of buying a block of land in town, he bought 30 acres on the highway, and so that was a big thing. And then this gantry crane was working in Melbourne on the Gateway Bridge.
Wow.
Back in the 90s.
Yep.
And Dad had we couldn't understand why he wanted to buy this 110 ton gantry crane.
Massive.
But Dad thought, well, one day that'll be a great use. And it was, because a low loader that comes in the yard now can just pick it all up in one go.
Straight off.
And take off.
Yeah. No stands.
But Dad was thinking not just a few years ahead, he was thinking many years ahead.
Yeah, that's like...
And unbelievable. It's a pity our politicians don't do that today. That's true. Look, if we had politicians that thought, because the biggest problem we have in today is the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Now, you want to invest, family businesses like ourselves and you guys want to invest in the future. It's hard to predict more than 3 years in advance.
Yeah.
Because they change the rules. So one day they open a mine, next day they close it. And all they're worried about is themselves and not the future of the country.
One-term wonders. It's how many we're going to have.
That is a big concern for me, because we have a lovely country, we have lovely resources, and we just can't plan ahead.
Yeah.
It is very sad.
Yeah. Well put.
Especially with the elections coming on soon.
The evolution of your business, like just physically, the facility itself, and I didn't realise that the little museum you guys have on site is the original shed. And I think that's amazing. And I think, I'm not sure if it was you or Dave that said it, whether it was foresight to think this will make a great memento one day, or whether you were just hoarders and kept this shed over all those years. But it's so great to see.
Bit of both, Ryan. Look, I'm proud to say that what I love about our staff is that they get involved in the history of the family and the company as much as we family members.
Yeah.
They were part of it. See, they were as much of building the company up as we were as family members. Yeah. And they feel it's theirs, and rightfully so. So it's a memorabilia also for them, not just for the family.
Yeah.
It's a memorabilia that, and they're excited about it. I go weekends back to work sometimes, and there they are polishing the machines or starting them up, running them. It's amazing the what's the word I'm using? They're so keen and enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
It makes me proud because the other day, as you saw at our 60th anniversary, those machines were all polished up. They all went.
Yep.
It's a great tribute to the staff.
Definitely.
It was good to see them all being started up, and
absolutely,
it's good to stand back and think, I wouldn't want to be sitting on one of the death machines
all day.
Although, I must admit, driving those old machines is probably like an aviator today. If you're flying a DC-3 or flying a jumbo, I think you ask the pilot, he'd rather fly a DC-3 because you're flying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
In those days, the machines, you drove them. Yeah. Now they drive you.
Yeah.
You just got to press the buttons, it's
to make it move. Yeah.
How would you describe the company today from what it was when you were a young guy? And what's your take on where it is now?
Look, honestly, Ryan, I think that something that my father taught us was that always reinvest in the business. Dad was never, ever, he always reinvested within the company. And that was something that we can be proud of today, which we carry on as well. Look, over the years, I can honestly say, and I don't want to brag about it, but we're up there outside of the OEMs. We'd be probably, up in the leading mob to handle the machinery business outside of the OEM, as in supplying parts, reconditioned, used components. We have several product lines. We have used, reconditioned, aftermarkets, redundant stocks. And, I'm proud to say that we're up there with amongst the top elite. I'd say that.
Branches all over Australia.
Yeah, we have branches in Perth, Mackay, Gunnedah, Hunter Valley, obviously where all the mining areas are.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever run out of room down the road there?
We probably will.
Don't you have a property out the back? They might need to punch through into your house.
Actually, we are developing a property now for industrial blocks at the moment. So we're not short of room, no. Yep. Oh, sorry, where we are, but luckily we've again through foresight, through looking at it advance, that we obtained more property around where we are now. So. Yeah, we're not short of ground.
Any secrets on
unless we can convince? Well, you got to go through all the red tape and the green tape with the authorities. That's the biggest pain in the arse.
To get it zoned right, and any secrets on aged inventory control?
Well, you can check with Geoff on that. Geoff won't let anything go. We say we've got to get rid of that dead stock. No way.
Build it into furniture like the podium.
That's the old school. He just won't let it go.
Somebody will need it one day.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
But that's the advantage, Ben, of having the room. We can afford to stock the old
for so long. Yeah,
the old inventory, as you said. Yeah.
So, what's one of the proudest things about the Wauchope branch? Do you think?
Oh, Ben, I can say I'm very proud of what we do, especially in our reconditioning section. Look, we have tradesmen that are just unbelievable. The product we sell or give to our clients, whether it's on exchange or whatever. We're as good as, and if not, I believe as good, if not better than the OEMs.
Definitely.
The pride those guys put into the rebuilds is just unbelievable, and that's something that, especially our engine section. Well, not only the engines, but all over. We give them the right tools, and they give us the right product, and they love it. They're very dedicated, and it's honestly a pleasure to sell the stuff.
Yeah, the engine dyno, the transmission dyno, it's a big investment.
It is a big. There again, we're talking about investment. It is a big investment, Ben. Yeah. But we had confidence in the future and confidence in our staff.
Yeah.
Again, it's the staff that make it, and you got to show respect to the staff and and give them praise and look after them, and they will give you a good product.
Give them the right tools, yeah.
And give them the right tools, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've never squanched on that. We've always given the best tools, again, for the productivity, but also for their safety, and also for the to have a good result with the end product.
Yeah.
Because we warrant all our work as everyone does. And our warranty issues over the years have definitely dropped dramatically, and I'm proud to say that.
Yeah.
It's not only the quality of the parts we're using, but it's also the quality of the man hours of the men and women that do it.
Staff, yeah.
And the workmanship that goes into it.
Yeah.
Bit of proudness.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it goes a long way.
Pride.
Yeah, pride.
Pride. That's the word.
Pride, absolutely.
One of the things that we've talked about a lot in this episode is the evolution of the business, the history, and it's very evident if you get a chance to walk through Expressway's facility. When you come in the front door, it's like stepping into a time portal. But by the time you make your way to the new workshops, that's as modern and technologically led as anywhere that you'd see out there. And I love the range of being able to experience all those environments as you work your way through the facility.
Well, right, if you get an aerial photo, you can see the way we've grown over the years. It's the different types of buildings and but you've got to keep up with it. And technology, it's important. Pollution control's important. So you got to make it efficient. Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely, yeah.
And there again, you got to reinvest.
Yep.
Have confidence in the future.
As you said, yeah.
That we'll get to that in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully.
Any plans to go overseas?
Look, Ryan, I doubt it very much. I think we've got enough to do in Australia, providing we that the governments or the politicians do the right thing. It's too risky overseas, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You're not in control.
Yep.
So I honestly say at this stage we certainly have no ambition to have to have a premises overseas. Certainly work overseas, absolutely, but not to have a premises. No.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone speak French?
I can speak French.
Yeah, one, but not. No one else?
My son Stefan speaks French.
Oh, yeah, he does, of course.
Yeah, he's French.
Yes.
So, James can understand
James
French.
would have to.
Yeah, James, my nephew can speak and understand French.
Speaking of James, what year did you retire as managing director and James step into the role?
Yeah, I've retired as managing director 18 months ago.
Yeah, roughly 18 months.
And James took over then, and I stayed on till Christmas.
Yep.
So I've been retired now officially 4 months.
4 months.
I'm still a director
of
the company, of course, and my son's still there as well.
Yep.
He's a co-director, and so the tradition's carrying on, Brian, which I'm very proud of.
How many days a week, we were having a joke about this recently, would somebody like James, for instance, go for a walk and just you'd pop up in an Expressway shirt and be down the back talking to somebody?
Well, they called me Keith. I think I told that story.
Yeah. I think you should tell everyone the story of Keith.
Well, what happened back in the 80s? No, back in the 90s. We had this gentleman, and we're going through some tough times at the time. And I said to this gentleman, "Look, mate, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go." Oh, okay, and so I gave him a fortnight's notice, and after a fortnight, he turned up and kept on turning up, and I just didn't have the gall to say, "Mate, you got to go."
You got to go.
I was too weak, and he just kept on coming until he retired.
8 to 10 years
His
later.
name was Keith. So every time I go back to work now, they call me Keith. He was a lovely guy, actually.
Geoff, what's your favourite memory as you reach the end of your career that you've dedicated to Expressway
I think
Spares?
there's a lot. Like there's a lot of milestones we hit. Like I think it was 84 we put the first computer in, which was something we'd never seen or had anything
got rid
to
of the
do with.
microfiche.
Yeah. Microfiche and
that's right.
Cardex.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they were Cardex as well.
Slide out Cardex with the cards in
Yeah.
them. That's all the stock.
Do you still got
was
those, some of
controlled.
them down there?
Yeah.
You absolutely would have them stashed away down there.
Yeah, they're
I
up on
reckon.
the top of the.
Did you get the trainees
Office.
in there and their apprentices that can learn this for
I
a
should
day?
the amount of time I spent on them. But,
You got to pass that on because that'll get lost.
It will.
Yeah.
Won't it?
and we used to do all that manually originally.
Yep.
And then this thing called computer turned up, and with a friend that has become a really good friend of Patrick's, Steve Lyles, and He used to do some programming because back then CAT didn't run CAT programs, or the dealers didn't run CAT programs. They all had their own, like Goff and Gilmore or Warren Joe.
Oh, yeah,
It would have
the
been
dealer.
Goff and Gilmore.
Yeah.
They had their own program, and Hastings run a different one, and they were all separate. So we were lucky enough through Steve. He actually wrote the programs for some of the dealers, and consequently he was able to assist us in because we wanted more than what the dealers did, and the ability to be able to get information out.
You've essentially ridden the wave over 60 years of every major technological advancement along the way. And like yesterday, yesterday was the centenary of CAT. 100 years was yesterday, I believe.
Oh, was it?
So you guys have ridden 60 years of that change.
Of that
products,
yeah.
And then 94 we went through all the QA stuff and
we got
that in, got accredited.
Yep.
So that we could deal with the tier 1 miners. Like a lot of those were starting to get that role where you had to have all those things in place.
Yep.
So,
the worst part about it, you had all that in place because they said you had to tender for a job.
Yep.
And then they'd go and they just go and get someone off the back of
that didn't have that.
Didn't have it. But
Backyard.
anyway, but it certainly helped the operations to become more
efficient.
Efficient's the word,
Yep.
Yeah.
And we still keep current, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's been quite a few really over the years.
Yep.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then like the CIS, when that come in, like when did that?
Oh.
What would that been? That would have been probably 90s.
90s, late 90s?
Yeah.
Yep.
Something like that, because up to then you only had parts books.
Yeah.
You had rows of them.
Your rows of parts books, wasn't it? Pull the parts book off.
Yep. That's it. We've still got all them too, by the way.
I imagine you would stashed away somewhere. You're going to have to expand that museum soon.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Look, as we reach the end of the episode, we do a segment called 5 Quick Ones where we're going to ask you guys a few questions that you don't know what we're going to ask. My first question is, you've name-dropped a couple of people and you've travelled the world. Who's the most memorable person you've met along the way?
Ryan, look, I've met prime ministers. I've met a lot of people. For me, to be honest with you, would be a lady called Nancy Wake. They used to call her the White Mouse. She was a New Zealand lady, came to Australia, nationalised Australian, and just before the Second World War, she went to Europe and lived in England and was a journalist. And during the war, she realised what was going on, and she joined the resistance, the French resistance from England under de Gaulle, and she'd parachute into France and help the airmen get back to England through Spain, and literally fought the Germans hands-on. She was hands-on.
Yeah.
I had the great privilege of meeting that lady, Nancy. I have very fond memories of her. She loved the French, so that was our welcoming card. But an amazing woman. So for me, Nancy Wake, the White Mouse as they called her, would be someone that I would always have the very fond memory of meeting, that wonderful person. She was the most decorated woman heroine. Is that the word? Heroine. Yeah. In Australia, as far as I know.
Yeah, right.
From the Second World War, that is. But just an amazing person. Yeah. So to me, that's my claim to fame.
What prime ministers have you met along the way?
I've met Tony Abbott and John Howard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two. Yeah.
And hopefully a couple of future ones or a future one.
Oh, well, yeah. Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
What's your most favourite bottle of wine?
Well, I don't drink anymore, Ben, but my favourite was obviously probably a rosé.
Yes.
My brother John and his sons make a beautiful rosé. So I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I love the rosé.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I used to.
Used to. Backed off a bit now. Yeah.
Oh, I'm back. I'm complete dry now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to look after yourself.
Yes.
at our age.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
We were talking about being fluent in French earlier, excuse me. I know one phrase and I want you to rate me on my pronunciation. Merde de chien.
Oh, dog shit.
Dog shit. Yeah. Is that, how does that sound?
Well, yeah, it sounded all right. Mouth is shan. Dog shit.
Well, I know shan is dog.
And mouth is shit.
Shit. So you linked it up well.
Ryan, you're up in my estimate.
Thank you.
Esteem.
Thank you.
You'll be on the next.
And
Merci.
what's your favourite French expression?
It's French expansion. Oui.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, yeah.
Bonjour. Yeah.
About as far as you need to go.
Yeah. I might ask you this, Geoff. Favourite place in Australia?
From a work perspective and going there, probably Western Australia, up into the Pilbara.
Yeah. Pretty nice, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't mind it up there. Nice open space. And
We snuck off on a little trip to the Carragini up there once.
all right.
Had a look at those waterfalls up there. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
out of
no.
Tom Price.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's unlike you to
into
sneak off
Newman
on a
and
little trip.
Australia's such a great country. That's why we're here.
Yep.
Yeah, no, there is a
Yes.
lot of good places, but yeah, it's just the expanse and the broadity of it.
Out there. Yeah.
The last question we ask all our guests right at the very end, I'm going to ask it both you guys individually. Patrick, you first. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self any advice, what would it be?
Wow. Give myself or an 18-year-old. Look, I think don't aim too high. Don't I would don't think that if you're unable to matriculate at university, that's not an issue. Just get a trade. Don't think that you have to have a university degree to get on in life. My father always said, and I repeat that to my grandchildren: be honest and hardworking, and you'll get on.
Yep.
That's all I could advise.
Hmm.
Just work hard, be honest, and the life,
Roll.
yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like it. What about you, Geoff?
Yeah, although he nearly virtually stole my thunder because I was very much down that similar line. Like it is something that you don't need university degrees, and if you're interested enough and you want to do it, it'll work.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you've got to be interested. If you're not interested, forget it.
Well, gents, it's been great. We harassed both of you guys for a very long time to get you to come in
Took a
here.
long time.
Mate, I'm shocked that you're sitting here with us today, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, so am I. I'm retired, right? Ben, thank you very much.
That's very
too.
good.
Thanks,
Patrick.
supposed to be Monty.
Thanks, Geoff.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Ryan.
much. Thank you very
My
much.
pleasure.
Thanks. Sorry.